welcome everyone to this wonderful afternoon. And the good part of having such a distinguished panel, the moderator jobs become very easy because the panel can kind of pretty much manage on its own. I think one apologies from my side. I think Rakesh Srivastava, Managing Director, Nissan, has not been able to join for some technical difficulties. But if that gets sorted, he will. But moving on, I think the Deepak, just to carry your conversation forward, and since you already prompted on the government end, and I'll take a minute to move on. One thing good if we look at, while there are lots and lots of expectation, one basic expectation which seems to have got filled up well is that there's practically nobody going hungry in the country today. A job may be lost, and which is kind of otherwise the amount of money which we've spent on that could have been used to keep one industry revived, could have been kept to, if only we had to keep the say the travel and tourism industry live with the airports and the airlines and the hotels. The entire money which has been spent on feeding people until November every month, 5 kg ration everybody, is similar. So I think for a country like India, when we look at it, the other point that you mentioned in terms of limited resources, that goes without saying. So if we have to choose between, do we get our airlines remain healthy, and I mean no disrespect there, and I'm just taking as an example, versus making sure everybody has enough to eat. I think everybody on the panel and on the speaker would agree that the choice at that end is right. But yes, whether that's the only segment to deal for, whether something more needs to be done, I think those are questions which should be asked, will need to be answered. Okay, from there, I think moving on, two questions actually which come to my mind, and I'd want to pick on the panel in a little more detail, and which I think I'm sure in many of our attendees and everybody's mind come in pretty important. The first one is, with the new supply chain ecosystem disruption happening across the world, the China word that it is being said, the way the new supply chain rebalancing is happening, is India ready to play in that game? The disruption and the new normal, which we are all hearing about, in this space, can India do something significant? And second, I think biggest question each of us are facing is around that. Look, is India doing enough or what can India do more from a restarting standpoint? Yes, we are into unlock 3 and all that is going on, but so moving on from this side, maybe I start with Anuj. Anuj, in your new role as the global CFO, you would be making investment decisions in terms of where should the next plant come in, and so on and so forth. So asking you the globalization question, so two things if you can lay your emphasis on. One, what could the government do and what could industry do to make sure that investments, supply chain investments global are coming into India?
Sure, Neel, as you rightly said, I think now India is being looked at as a strong alternative. I think we have seen many examples over the last few months. Whether it's an example of iPhone, I think this is a very prominent example which comes to everybody's mind. I think India has answered to your specific question. India has got some success stories. So whether we look at the two-wheeler market or we look at the pharma industry, I think that these are some of the two industries which stand out very prominently. I think they have proven, whether it comes the question of the R&D, it's pretty strong. The cash reserves are good. The profitability is good. So these two industries, I think, have proven over the last few years. I think learning from these two industries, I think a couple of things which they have done well is, one, they were very aspirational. So if I take an example of, let's say, the two-wheeler industry, Hero, for example, had an aspiration to be the number one globally. Now, do we see that the same level of aspiration across all the sectors? That today the answer is no. I would like to share an example from Zeiss. So we set up the manufacturing unit for the eyeglass in 2012, and the one of the key challenges which we had at that point of time was how do we compete with China, who has got scale, the automation. Are we going to compete in terms of the quality? Are we going to compete in terms of the cost per lens, etc.? So as and the service quality as well. Being German, who's very wants this very high precision, very high standards of quality. So those were all the questions that we had. First couple of years were quite difficult, but I think over a period of time, now where we stand, the development is we are the number one within the global network of the manufacturing units we have. So we are number one in terms of the cost, quality, consistency. So today, some of our the biggest the European customers, they want, if given a preference, they would want to buy from India, not from any other plant in the world. So this is so we were a little bit aspirational that we wanted to compete with China. I think it's again always healthy to have that internal healthy competition. So I think we could prove. Now, coming to your the second question, I think if India has to move to the next level of manufacturing, what could government do? I think there are maybe pretty long list of things that which can be done. But I think if I have to highlight one area, definitely would take the labor law reforms. I think the labor law reforms that we have in the country today are quite outdated. I'm sure Mr. Sharma as well as Manoj would agree on that. So the laws we have are pretty much the pre-colonial or pre-independence era regulations. So I think we have some of the problems in terms of the union. So the market is not as matured as, say, some of the Western world, where you have the unions, even let's say in the European countries, but they're a lot more matured. So we don't have that sort of maturity. I think there are quite long list of the labor law compliances you have to do, which a lot of times is not necessarily the productive for the organizations. And third is I think that today the organizations don't really have a lot of independence, and that creates a bottleneck for the competencies. So I think if the government has to focus on something, I would say the labor law reform should should stand out. If we are able to address that, I think that can open the good avenues for us.
Thanks a lot.